The Rock will take on the Dudley Boys in a handicap match. A handicap table match. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, that's a little better. It's Handicap Match Mania on the Smackdown on Tales.
I knew that was
from
coming.
the Attitude Era.
I knew that was coming. Okay. Yeah, this is Handicap Match Mania.
Okay, so let's get it out of the way. Let me give you my...
All right. All right. Okay. You start, and then I'll retort, because it did make me think, like, oh boy, this was a pickle. But go ahead.
I try not to be too critical, but this seemed like a bit lazy. This episode,
Okay.
in terms of maybe lazy is a strong term. I don't want to say lazy.
Well, no, I have my retort.
There is
Let's use the word problematic.
Problematic, yes.
Because this show was anything but lazily booked, and I'll explain why. In fact, it's one of the more difficult shows to book, which often happens. So lazy is not lazy. Would have been great. Oh, whatever. It was problematic. It was intense.
Interesting.
But it was not lazy.
Well, here's the difference between being a viewer and being in the trenches.
Right.
Someone out here, I'm like, are they serious?
Yeah.
3 handicap matches and then a 4th handicap match added later in the show. And I mean, I'm not even gonna get started with the clean finishes. We're beyond that now.
Yeah.
But just the setups, I was a little blown away. And also I was just like, wow, you have a lot of heels.
Yeah.
Because all these handicap matches, obviously with a handicap match, typically it's 1 face versus 2 heels. And just a lot of people on the heel side. And I don't know, it felt a little repetitive, I guess would be the better word than lazy.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is sometimes you look at it, and I hate to the maximum range of an excuse is 0 meters, as I learned in the Army. But it's one thing to be like, we're booking matches. Okay, we do this. But you start to add things in there like just the travel, what's happening. Okay, first of all, Boston. Going to Boston, this was crazy. Let me paint the picture. No GPS in cars. Cell phones were happening. There was a thing in Boston happening called the Big Dig. I don't know if anyone knows about it. It was one of the largest construction projects in the world. Boston's insane as far as traffic. If you look at Boston on a map, so there was this old, I guess, elevated highway that they wanted to the first city to do this. They're going to put tunnels underneath Boston to get rid of this one highway because it was just, the traffic was a nightmare. So the project started in 98 and not finished till 2007, cost billions. So what they were doing is
they finished it.
Yeah. They were extruding dirt out of making this tunnel everywhere. So there was cranes all over the place. There was such construction. The Fleet Center, which was pretty new at the time, is right by where the tunnels come out. There was just this absolute, and anyone who knows, who lived in Boston this time, I don't know how you lived there. It was crazy. So I was getting all these calls. Our hotel was down at this other part. People were everyone was paranoid, everything was late. Oh my God, getting to the arena late. What's happening? Tons of calls from people how do I get there? Where's the hotel? I'm on the other side. I told so many people on the phone when we finally got our directions, and I don't even know how we did this, but instead of GPS, where am I going? The freeway ended, and there was just this total big machinery everywhere, moving. It didn't even look like you were supposed to be there. You had to compete with these road graders. And then I would we actually had a cop escort saying no, you go up through there. And I'm like, no, there's fucking trucks. This is insane. And yeah, you got to go past that. So everyone was late everywhere. I had people on the phone. I remember Gorch was on the phone with wrestlers how do I get there? And just talking you got to go past that construction. No, there's construction truck. There's road graders. I know that's where you're supposed to be. No, it doesn't make sense. So everything was a fucking mad scramble. And this really affected stuff. So we finally kind of met, at the, we didn't have things one of those shows where here's some plans. I don't know. But the kind of theme was like, okay, this is going to be heels night rule. We're moving towards WrestleMania, and like let's see, the heels are going to rule.
I was going to say this episode should be called Thursday Night Heat.
yeah. So it was like, okay, heels are going to rule, and then it just kept scrambling around. Like, well, the idea of like what was good about the handicap match for the most part was like, well, we're just going to have to fucking entertain the people and let them like leave satisfied with like some hardcore, just all kinds of fucking gaga and schmazrooney. Fuck it, and the heels will rule. And the thing is like, just didn't want to have like definitive endings to like storylines. Just wanted to just have an overall thing where like, okay, let's get heels rule this night, and then like hopefully it'll lead towards them all getting their comeuppance at WrestleMania. So it wasn't that like thought out. It really was. This show in particular was a mad scramble. When I got there, I peeled off and did the Crash Holly thing at a laundromat somewhere, and then even that was crazy. It was like everything was like 40 extra minutes on either side of travel. Like, what are we doing? We had this laundromat set up. Like, fuck, I'm out of here. I'm on the phone. Everyone was worried about like, oh, are things going to show up? Are people going to be late? Well, if we have this big hardcore match and these huge handicap matches, they can just stretch, to ad nauseum. So it was one of those things where it was problematic, and you just knew like people were going to be, rightfully so, like you have this attitude of like, what was this all about? But at the same time, at the end of it, it was like, I can't believe the show was pulled off, because it was just a logistical nightmare. Not to blame it on that, but. And just, and when you say lazy, it's not the word, because even like I think sometimes you're sitting there and the fucking clock's ticking, and then like, okay, fine. And it was appeasing Vince to be like, all right. And then it was kind of like, I think we got 3 in a row handicapped. Fuck it. It's handicap match night. Fuck it. Just explaining to everyone. But everyone was so like, oh, coming in late, and just, because it was madness. It was real madness. Thanks a lot, Boston. Yeah, it was. But it was, if anyone's out there, just Wikipedia the Big Digger. I remember from my hotel room counting 50 cranes all across like the skyline.
Wow.
It's one of the craziest construction projects ever. Like, yeah, it was just, and the Fleet Center, if anyone's been there, is like right by it was like, people were driving like, I see the Fleet Center. I'm going in the other direction. Pull off. That's no exit. That's construction. No, pass. It was fucking insane.
Now known as the TD Garden.
Yes.
The Fleet Center. That's interesting, because when I was seeing this last week, we discussed how Raw was in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Right.
And this was in the primary market in Massachusetts, Boston. And I was surprised, like, wouldn't you want your A show in Boston and your B show in the smaller market? But it sounds like it was for the best, because you might have not even been able to pull off Raw if it was in Boston.
Yeah, I think that literally was the reason. And people were like, and I'm sure anyone who's probably out there listening to who did any kind of dealings with anything on the road, whatever, in Boston in these years, were like, oh, God. It was just, there was like hotels you couldn't get to that were like suing and like overrun. It was madness. It was really like, because you got to understand, Boston's one of the most, because I read a book about the Big Dig after, because I was so fascinated, constructed pieces of land in the world. Meaning, if you go back to the 17th, 18th century, 70% of what is Boston today was water. You just, the whole back bay was like filled in, and then, everything was fucked up before they even had cars, and it just built and grew in this weird way where they were just like, in the 80s going like, it's going to be uninhabitable with cars, and what do we do? The Big Dig, we'll dig tunnels underneath. We can't even do that. There's construction over it. We'll figure. They invented a way to extrude earth. Oh, it was a thing, man. So, who would have thought that this wrestling podcast would have gone into a construction nightmare, booking blame, fucking just fiasco.
With all of that said, I think you put together a great show then. With that context.
That was the attitude. The kind of end, like, it was one of these. Whoo! There's a lot of hate. Yeah. Woo! Yeah.
And again, this is the benefit of being super hot, right?
Absolutely.
Like, no one's going to remember this in a few weeks, theoretically. Everyone's, the eyes are on WrestleMania. So you can get away with something like this much more so than if you weren't hot. Then it would be
and I think, too, since we have the smart mark was kind of a relative, like, not a new term, but I think, now looking back at it in this retrospect, I think at the time, I would have to say people left the arena happy still. And I don't think it was like there wasn't this massive internet community wrestling weirdness to be like, what are they doing with these that was just like, beep, next show. Wasn't that big of a problem. Well, like they say, it's never as good as you think, and it's never as bad as you think.
Yeah. Well, there was some good on the show. Well, let's talk about it.
Let's go.
We start at TD Center, Boston. Starts a little different than
Fleet Center.
Fleet Center.
Yeah.
It starts a little different because Stephanie and Triple H don't go to the ring. They're just hanging out on the stage. And right as Stephanie tries to say something, Shane's music interrupts. He comes out. There's still a little tension there between the two of them, obviously with the current WrestleMania main event being set up. Shane says, I know what you want me to do. You want me to get payback on my sister. Slap her right across the face. Triple H gets in the way because he's her husband and you can't talk to his wife like that. And then Shane says, since that's what the fans want, he's not going to do that.
Ooh.
Boo. Then Triple H grabs the mic and says, I bet you want to see me and Big Show rip each other apart. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to do that.
Oh,
we're not going to do that until WrestleMania.
In fact, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to sit here all night.
We're just going to die. Yeah.
Because there's a thing called the Big Dig out there, and no one can get here. Boo. Go ahead.
Also, I'm blown away by this forgotten Big Show look of the heavy earring and the backwards baseball cap. Looks very 2000. Look, he just got back from a Limp Bizkit concert.
Yeah. I know, and it's especially accentuated when they get like the sour face,
Yeah.
I'm really distraught here with this like massive earring and
Big Rocky chant as soon as Big Show grabs the mic, which I have to say means the feud is working. If the crowd knows to chant The Rock at Big Show, like, that's great.
Oh, The Rock could have feuded with a potato back then. My goodness.
Yeah, I was gonna say it could have just been like 3 people that knew, and everyone said, "Oh, we're cheering for Rocky." Okay,
yeah.
Show says he could have chokeslammed Kane this past Monday, chokeslammed him to hell, but instead he'll be facing X-Pac and Road Dogg tonight. And I'm like, all right, fine. So far, I'm like, okay, what else do we have?
Yeah.
And then Shane is like, oh, that gives me an idea. How about another handicap match? Wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
How about Rikishi versus Triple H and Big Show? And I think, wow, okay, 2 handicap matches. Surely that must be the end of it. But no! Triple H grabs the mic and says, since we're talking about handicap matches, Chris Benoit and Perry Saturn are going to take out The Rock. So we have 3 handicap matches booked for this evening, and a 4th one on the way. I will, if I should say something positive, at least these are all within storyline. And again, I'm so impressed at how many heels are available here, you know, to cover this. And all of these people have been feuding, so it isn't that thrown together. Then we go to an earlier today at a very nice laundromat. It's in the ground floor, the almost basement level of this building, and there's a lot of exposed brick, and it's much nicer than a typical laundromat.
And it was one of those things about the machine where we're like, yeah, okay, let's do this, and then like just someone shows up from the office, there, be like, oh yeah, we got like a local, you always have some like local PA guys or people that they've hired, and like, we're going to the laundromat. I don't know where the fuck it was, what the neighborhood was, whatever. We go there, we show up high, and then like, what was great about the WWF back then, it was kind of like, as we were talking, like, what if we fuck up machines? And like, what? Like, no one cares. Vince loves that. Send a bill. If business was so hot, there was never like, even if like some laundromat owner would be like, well, don't fuck up with the machines. You'd be like, whatever, just do what you got to do for the show. So like none of that mattered ever. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to do a remote thing, like, oh, what if we break something? Will someone be mad? Like, fuck no. Nothing makes Vince happier than like, oh, I got to cut a check because I destroyed something. Makes him literally
That's what
happier.
I was going to see, because I was like, oh, this is like a legitimate storefront, like, and like there was points where they were almost busting through the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was just like, oh, that's got to be really fun to know that it's covered.
So fun, yeah. You could have like, as long as it was, especially if it's like, oh, we ruined 3 fucking industrial washers at $3,600 a piece. Was it a great? That would be all the thing. Well, did it look great? Yeah, it looked great. Oh, fine. You know what I mean? Like that's like, especially when you work in entertainment, everyone's so risk averse in companies. But Vince McMahon always said, if I'm not being sued at any given time, I'm not doing my job. That was his attitude. So that was fun. You had someone who had like your back no matter what. Like
yeah.
Like what happened? Wrestlers destroyed the business. No problem. Like we'll send Jerry McDevitt and get him out of jail. Like.
So outside of the laundromat, the posse are working on a plan. They're like, all right, this is the plan. I'm going to go in. Blah 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 blah. And then as soon as they go in the laundromat, it all goes to shit. Yeah. They're all fighting with each other. They're jumping on top of each other to attack Crash. What I like is that Crash was all the way at the very end of the laundromat. So you had to like really run through this thing. And then Crash was there. He had a mop, and he threw the mop, I think, at Rodney. And it was a fun brawl. And Crash, of course, escaped.
I think so,
Posse's pissed off. Pete Gas drops a little laundry detergent on Rodney because he's pissed.
Yeah. That was Karo syrup. That was my idea. Be like, can we get some of that corn syrup and we'll put blue food dye in it, and it'll we mimic like it's like soap, but then we didn't like rinse the thing out too much. So it was like, it still tasted soapy or whatever. But it was fun. And also what was so you got to realize, like, we pull in this van, we got the camera crew, and I was just like, the camera guys are so seasoned, like, yeah, guys, work it out. Okay, how about I'm here? Everything is worked out so fast. And it's fascinating for people in the neighborhood, because there's a lot of people in the neighborhood didn't know what was going on in this like cool Boston neighborhood, and to just see some like older women and stuff that were like, oh, the laundromat's closed, like, what the fuck's going on? And it happened so fast, and they're just filming this, like, just the confusion of people. And sometimes you'd always be like, oh, try to get like a local, like, just their faces to be like, what the fuck? And it was just like, swoop in, fight, camera, swoop out. Like, it's like amazing how fast this shit was done. It was just like 5 minutes, talk through it. And they're all such seasoned pros. All right, I'll do the thing here. Oh, we'll do that. And like, okay, this is cool. And have at it. It's great. So fun.
I love that like you didn't even warn the civilians, so to speak.
No. Yeah.
What's going on. And let's have them freak out.
God damn it. And I worked at Conan O'Brien. We did a lot of stuff, in New York like that. But then, work on different shows and things, and it'd have that attitude. And it was like, what are you doing? You need a permit. We can't do this. And it'd be like, what are you talking about? Wrestling was just so wild. Like, yeah, we just get some owner's permission. And I don't even remember, like, the owner of the laundromat. Okay, whatever. Stay out of the way. Gagoosh, we're out of here. And then he's got to deal with someone from the office to be, if he's mad. I don't even know, it's so fun. Like, yeah, maybe he'll, who cares? Tim White's bar, destroying it for the third time. He's probably double dipping in insurance. Rest in peace. Oh, whatever. Just like, yeah, doesn't matter. Great.
Next, The Rock comes out. Huge pop. A lot of ladies in the crowd. A lot of high-pitched pops tonight for the handsome gentleman.
What did you call it? The Kerry Von Erich pop?
The Von Erich pop, yeah.
Yeah. The KVE.
I can't even do it. Yeah. You that's where I first heard it, when I would watch those old World Glass tapes of just like high-pitched screeching. And I'm like, wow, I've never heard anything like this before.
The Kerry Von Erich Beatles pop.
Yeah, exactly. And so Rock comes out, does his promo, typical promo. Shane and Steph, Donnie and Marie, Joni and Chachi, you got nothing on The Rock. says, what's interesting is he sort of puts Chris Benoit over by not insulting him. He said, The Rock, went the limit with you on Monday, and I'll face you again today. And now you're bringing out Perry Saturn. Says Perry Saturn is bald, cross-eyed, and has Mickey Mouse tattoos. This is a veteran, Rock. Yeah. Come on down here so Rock can knock that lazy eye straight, he says.
Pretty good.
If you smell what The Rock is cooking. And the crowd is very into this. This is one of the loudest moments of the night.
That's half the show right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Forget handicap match, this and that, and like whatever. Again, go to you in a time capsule with your attitude. You are in at the arena with me during this segment. Isn't there a lot of handicap matches? And then like, it's The Rock. What? I didn't hear you, Rob. What you said? It's a lot of handicap matches. I'm sorry, The Rock's here. I can't hear you. So.
Well, that's fair. Okay, so The Rock, and then as Saturn and Benoit come out, it's an interesting match because it's not a traditional handicap match because they're both in the ring at the same time. A handicap match is typically the same rules as a tag team match, except one side only has one person, right?
Is it? I guess. Is it typical? I've seen it both ways.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like
I guess it was more often than not it's that. But,
yeah, at the time I would say. Yeah. Now, I feel a no DQ handicap match would have all the people in the ring.
I like some of the old, I've seen like a Bruiser Brody one where both guys were in there and they just were like so sheepish, like, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? And let's attack one at a time. It's clunky, and then he just hammers both of them. I've seen that. There's an old Hogan too at one time when he was like, he used to have that T carved in his, Sterling Golden maybe? I can't remember, but really old, but something like that. They're always squash matches. So this was a little interesting. Some seasoned people in a, how's this going to go?
Yeah. And so it was interesting in that it was the two radicals dominating dominating The Rock. And the only time that The Rock was able to get any offense was Benoit was doing German suplexes on The Rock. Just Rock eating German suplexes, landing on his neck. And then for the third one, Perry Saturn went to super kick The Rock. The Rock ducks. Saturn hits Chris Benoit. And then, so Chris Benoit is knocked out. And then in the melee, Rock catches Perry Saturn in the rock bottom. 1, 2, 3. And he gets a quick win, like he just squeezed by.
Right.
And then the other radicals ran out and destroyed The Rock. Made him regret that. And then it ends with Benoit giving The Rock a headbutt. Again, you're really protecting Benoit here. He does not eat the pin. He's the one that got most of the offense. And even The Rock doesn't insult him. So you're separating him from the pack here, clearly.
And, the end result is kind of good. It's not just like it's sort of like, oh, is there going to be dissension? And is that weak link in the Radicals? Because, the Radicals kind of like, as awesome as it was, presented a little bit of a problem. Like when it was kind of like everything's peaking and then we're winning the Monday Night Wars and like, holy shit, everyone from WCW came over. But then at a certain point now it's starting to happen like, wow, well, what do we do with all these guys? You know what I mean? And they're all heels and maybe we got to, there's going to be some dissent, so it had its place, when you. Yeah. And sometimes that's always like kind of trying to book shit it isn't so much all a plan. You look at the show and like, okay, what was the end result of that match? Oh, okay, is this potential like can Saturn peel off as like the weak link? Was he going to be a baby face? Is he going to be off or So it had its merits. And always really, look on the bright side of booking.
Yeah, no, like Saturn and Malenko in terms of WWE have no personality. Like you don't know anything about them,
right?
So this is the first kind of character development that Saturn really gets.
Yeah. Well, they're radical. We know that.
With a Z.
With a Z. Except for that third week in the graphics where it went to S and then it went back to Z. Which just goes to show you how fucking flying by the seat of your pants everything is,
So Stephanie comes out after the break and says, "Oh, you guys saw The Rock pretty early tonight." That's something I noticed as well. Like, oh, wow, The Rock is in the first match. That's interesting. You're just getting him out. Well, you would think you would say he's a ratings draw. You want to keep people's attention. Well, turns out I was a mark, because Stephanie's like, "Oh, you thought that was the only thing you get to see on The Rock?" Well, no. Tonight, The Rock will take on the Dudley Boyz in a handicap match. A handicap table match. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a little better. And before I saw the result here, I thought, because it's a table match and because nobody needs to be pinned and because the Dudleys are the tag team champions, I think the Dudleys needed to win here. And when we get to it, that's what happened. So we'll talk about it. It's Christian versus Essa Rios. This is an interesting match. While it lasted, I wish it lasted longer. Essa Rios is really pulling out the work rate out of some of these main roster guys. I guess Essa is also on the main roster.
But it was, I don't disagree, but it was so fast that it's hard to like.
Yeah, it was a bummer. It was like 3 minutes of action, but it was great. And Terry's out there. They're continuing this angle with Edge and Christian. She gets on the apron to distract the ref. As she does that, Lita gets on the top rope, does a moonsault on Christian. Edge is insulted. "How dare you?" And so he gets in the ring and spears Lita, which got a huge pop.
Yeah.
And the ref saw that, and it's a disqualification. Neither of those two people are in the match, though. So I guess because they're in the ring, like they're fighting. It's a no contest, I would say, that rather than a disqualification.
Yeah. I don't know. And what was the verbiage of the announcers? I can't remember. Was it like, but in the chaos of it all,
I guess it was like the ref calls for the bell. They didn't really.
Yeah. There's all kinds of disqualifications when managers get on the apron, that they're not in the match. So it's fine.
Yeah. And so it ends with Essa and Lita leaving and Christian and Edge continuing their dissension, almost teasing a breakup here, which is interesting. Before the break, Angle's backstage with a crew member. He says everybody knows what the Olympic medal means and everyone knows what the European title means, but they don't know what Intercontinental means. This is what we were talking about a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Inter means in between. Continental means of or pertaining to the continents. So Intercontinental means between all of the continents. So the crew guy's just like, "Can I get back to work?"
Yeah, I remember talking about this too. It's like, so that means there's kind of like things that never made it through, but I think gonna feed the guy lines like, so that means the oceans, like, what, you're the champion of the oceans, but it didn't go that far. But I always thought that was like, we mean between the continent and whatever.
Yeah, just that he's just the champion of the borders.
Yeah.
After the break, Angle gets more mic time in front of the crowd this time. He says, "Boss, there's something about this town that inspires greatness. Once people leave." Boo. Babe Ruth, Roger Clemens, and of course, the Bruins' Ray Bourne finally came to his senses. Ray Bork, sorry.
Yeah. And that was my suggestion. Because
he had just left, right?
Well, he was one of the greatest hockey players in Boston history, and Boston really sucked for the years he was there, but he was like, hands down one of the greatest players for a long time. And then even people in Boston were like, near the very end of his career, he went to the Colorado Avalanche and then he won a Stanley Cup. But people were so beloved in Boston that people were like, fucking let him go to a team where he can fucking win a championship. He's been so great. So it was one of those deals that has happened before.
I see. I love when towns are like that. Like, hey, we love him. We suck.
Yeah,
he deserves this one.
Well, the thing is Boston at the time, it was like so easy because they just had this legacy of like the Red Sox never winning, and Bruins hadn't won in a while. It's all different now, but at that time they were like a beaten down sports town in that sense. So it was fun heat, cheap heat, elevated.
It worked though.
Oh yeah, elevated with Angle. Angle elevates the cheap heat into rarefied air.
And, of course, he says, your Olympic hero doesn't have to leave this town to be a winner. He's already a winner.
Yeah.
And then the music, the lights fade, and it's Taz. A rematch from the Royal Rumble here, which is not acknowledged. But Taz gets some mic time as well, which I was very happy about. He says, Kurt Angle, you got all these championships around your waist and that medal around your neck. Well, I'm going to show you some heavy metal. And then he attacks him. It's like, all right, I'll take it. Good offense from Taz. Lots of suplexes. I noticed they keep calling him a street thug, which I don't think would be verbiage used today. And he even has thug on the back of his singlet.
Yes.
I think that's a little aggressive in today's society. But at least also Rottweiler was another term.
Should it say cunt? Only in England.
That.
Only in England, where it's much.
Yeah, it's allowed in England. So a pretty short match, but fun while it lasted. These guys really work well together. And then Kurt Angle gets locked in the Taz mission. Oh, he's in trouble. I like this. I like that you kind of make Taz look strong here, kind of show that he's a threat. And Kurt Angle has nowhere to go, only for Bob Backlund to come in once again, continuing this angle you're starting, and attack Taz. Bob Backlund attacks Taz, puts Taz in a cross-face chicken wing, which is very similar to the Taz mission. I thought that was a very interesting visual. I completely don't remember this. And then Chris Jericho's fireworks explode. He runs down to help Taz because the same maneuver was put on him on Monday, so he has to get his revenge. And he puts Backlund in the walls of Jericho. Backlund is busted from his nose. Angle goes on the top rope for some reason, and Taz climbs up and gives him a huge T-bone suplex off the top rope.
Yeah.
What a spot. I kind of was like, why did you just give away this spot in like a nothing melee? You know, like this was it looked awesome.
Yeah.
I thought it was great and a great angle here.
Kind of a highlight of the show in some ways.
In a way, yeah. Like everyone came out looking really good.
Yeah.
You got the angles across. Taz looks a little. This is like the first time Taz ended a segment looking strong.
Yeah,
in quite a while.
And there was some, for all the schmozzery, there was some like wrestling and suplexes, and then a weird a run in, but also an audience thing. And for me, I always love to see that crazed howdy doody face. the insane Bob Backlund is like my favorite.
Yeah, yes. That's the best Bob Backlund. For sure.
I think so.
Backstage, X-Pac tells Road Dogg he doesn't want anything to do with Kane anymore. And X-Pac, you know what? I feel your pain, brother. It's been like a good 5 months of this angle now. And I could see like why he could be pissed off. Like we've talked about this a few weeks ago, but like I feel like he has reason to be pissed off at Triple H constantly booking him in these matches against Kane. Like even the disadvantaged ones. It's like enough. It's another handicap match. X-Pac and Road Dogg versus Kane. Road Dogg getting a little better with his rhyme now. He's the D to the O to the G to the G with the X to the P to the A to the C.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
And then, and we got 2 words for you. And then this was a traditional handicap match, as I was saying earlier. They actually did tags. Only 2 people were in the ring.
Conventional handicap match.
Yes, this is back in my day.
Yeah.
This is how we did handicap match.
Yeah.
But it did have that Attitude Era finish. Ref knockdown. Tori attacks Paul Bearer. Kane tries to attack Tori, threatens to give her a choke slam. X-Pac hits him in the back with a chair. Road Dogg gets the pin and the quick victory as they run off. Sure. Fine.
Very house show-esque.
Yes. And backstage, Mae Young selling the effects of her injury. She's in a wheelchair and a neck brace. Mark Henry is inconsolable. He said this is too far. Moolah is back.
Yeah.
She's helping them. And I like this. And they said this is too far. Like it was a very short segment for sympathy. I almost feel bad for them that they had to drive out to Boston just to shoot this 10-second thing. But I guess it's an easy day at the office.
Oh, yeah. And they're glad to be there and they got paid. And I think a lot of this, too, was from, the hand delivery just not too long ago was a big thing of Vince being like, oh, they want this over. And I think there was like a weird federation grassroots groundswell of people like, oh, from, back to studio influence, like, you got it? What? You can't get rid of Mae Young? Like, what are you talking about? So it was kind of like...
So the joke was over for Vince.
Yeah.
But other people were like, no, we gotta get more Mae.
Yeah, we can't get, it's too, because it's always like, squish the storyline and whatever. But you think like, always a disappointment to me that it didn't carry through with some, like I said before, the miscarriage and and all this business.
Maybe that's how Vince felt, is because we got this comment on the Mae Young Raw episode from a few weeks back. From 2 weeks ago, someone left this on our Spotify. I wanted to read it.
It's a good comment.
Mae Young giving birth to a hand was like God telling me as a kid that it was time to grow up and focus on my life.
Yeah.
I didn't watch Raw for about 20 years.
20? Yeah. Yeah.
So what's funny to me is, like, if he didn't watch, so this was 2000. So if he didn't watch Raw for about 20 years, let's say he came back in like 2018, 2019. That was one of the worst moments in like, that was a period when I almost stopped watching. So it's so funny that that's what got him back into it.
Yeah, how funny. Yeah, it was a service to all those, like, look, there's a lot of people 18 to 23 that are fucking doing nothing. They need to stop watching wrestling and go get a GED or something. So
or a JOB.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. I do remember, like, this I thought was like, all right, it was fine, it was silly.
Yeah.
The one segment that really made me feel the way that guy felt was, and I know you had nothing to do with this, was the Katie Vick, so where Triple H was humping the dead corpse, the fake dead corpse of Katie Vick dressed as Kane, like that segment. Yeah. I was watching that with friends who are by all accounts casual viewers,
right?
And I was so embarrassed that like I was like, oh no, I hope they don't think less. I hope they don't think I like this. Right. Like, this isn't what I'm here for either. And I had to stop watching for a few weeks, just get that. Yeah. That was the depths of the worst era. The like 2003, 2004, once you left, it got really bad.
Yeah, that was really like, it was almost like that was like the paddles. Like, can we shock this back into life with just the most, like, that smells of Vince too.
It was Vince. Yeah, I remember listening to the Bruce Pritchard podcast about it, and they had this whole plan for it. And then Vince came in and like, it was like, all right, let's just do one take like this. And it's the take that aired. And then they were like, okay, cool. Now let's do the actual take. And he was like, no, we got it. Let's go home. And they're like, what? No, this is awful. No, I think it's great. We got it. Let's go home.
Yeah.
So, all right. I'll believe that.
Yeah, of course. Insanely plausible. Of course. It's exactly what happened.
After the break, the Dudleys are talking to each other. They want to thank Stephanie for booking this match. They're so excited to get their hands on The Rock, especially in their match du jour, a tables match. Then we get the Hardys coming out again. The Von Erich pop, Kerry Von Erich pop, high pitched screams.
The KVEB pop, Kerry Von Erich Beatles pop. The KVEB pop.
Backstage, Al Snow said he found Steve Blackman's biggest fan. It's some Mark with a big thing of cheese on his head. And the Mark asks Steve to take a photo. Al has the Polaroid. He's like, you know what to do. Say cheese. Great line. And it's a Polaroid. And as Al turns to watch the photo develop, Blackman knocks this guy in the gut. I feel like this is kind of a heel move from Blackman. Like, in the last few weeks, it was sympathetic, but this is just some civilian guy. He's a fan.
Yeah, he's hateable.
Why is Markman
got a cheese thing on his head, which makes him hateable.
So it's Blackman versus Steve Blackman versus Jeff Hardy. This was fun. This was a fun match. I could see more. Like, it's really cool seeing Blackman in there with these high flyers because he can match up with them.
Absolutely, yeah.
there was a cool spot at ringside. Jeff Hardy likes to do this move where the barricade has some like width to it, so you could stand on it. And so Jeff would jump on the barricade and do like a running like somersault off the barricade.
Yeah.
So Jeff goes to do this. He's running. Steve Blackman also jumps on the barricade, cuts off Jeff Hardy, and does a back body drop. It looked awesome. It looked very good. I was into it. And I feel like this ending was unnecessary in the sense of Jeff Hardy was going for the Swanton. For some reason now, Matt Hardy gets on the apron. Why would he get on the apron? I guess he's getting on the apron because it looked like Al Snow was about to interfere, which Al Snow did interfere. He pulled Blackman out. But because the ref was distracted, he didn't see the pull out. And then Blackman goes on the top rope, does his jumping kick, which looks vicious, and gets the win. I think he could have just done that without. I mean, I guess you needed the Al Snow interference maybe to show that Blackman needs Al Snow to win. But it felt a little much. Like of all the non-clean finishes.
Yeah. It's, I guess, well, you always got to look at it this way. Like, is it the execution or is it the idea? If the execution's a little wonky, something in there like, maybe he came up late and that's why he got on so it's sometimes it's hard to like say, well, we don't need that. It just was kind of like executed a little wonky. So sometimes that's in the post-mortem, like, well, that wasn't exactly by, concept bad. It just was a little a little funky.
Then we have The Rock versus the Dudleys in a tables match. This was another really fun match because it's a tables match. No DQ.
Look at you! These handicap matches. But you know what? Well, each in one individually, it was pretty fun, pretty entertaining.
This was the only. Wait, which other ones did I say were fun? I said Blackman versus Hardy was fun.
Right, and then you said just now Rocks and Dudley. This one was also fun.
Well, this is the only handicap match I said. I didn't say Kane and
oh, it's The Rock! I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, I did say the other Rock one was good.
Yeah,
with Benoit.
That was fun taking your friends to but that friend of yours, Rob Pasbani, he keeps complaining about the setups of the matches. I don't know why he just can't have a good time.
Why does he even come?
It's my friend, Ma. Leave him alone.
But this was good. So they're both in the ring. Crowd is super hot. And it adds to the match a lot that the crowd is really into it. And the crowd just go crazy. They love the action. They love The Rock's comebacks.
Yep.
There's lots of double teaming. Anytime The Rock is able to get an advantage, the other Dudley cuts him off. Like he's working on one guy, the other guy stops him. They set up a table for a 3D. They're going to finish off The Rock. Now, keep in mind, the Dudleys only have to put The Rock through the table once. The Rock has to put both of them through a table, which is a great narrative device. As I said, I thought the Dudleys should win. You guys agreed, and you set it up perfectly. So they go for the 3D. The Rock blocks the 3D by reversing the lift up that Devon does into a DDT. And then Bubba sees this, he's like, whoa, he runs over like a very comical villain. And then he gets caught in the Rock bottom into the table. Bubba is eliminated. And so now all The Rock has to do is put Devon through a table. So it's possible. Now the crowd is really amped up. Like, oh, we could see The Rock do this. He could win. He could win another handicap match. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be because eventually Bubba gets in the ring and hits Rock in the back with a chair. There's another table already set up, and the Dudleys do a 3D, put The Rock through the table. Perfect finish. Yeah. The Dudleys look strong. They're the tag team champions. They should not be jobbing to one guy. And The Rock looks strong because he kind of almost had it won. you know, he held his own until the numbers were just too much for him.
And people love the 3D.
Yes, people love the 3D. People love tables. This craving for tables that you're giving them.
And also, whenever The Rock does a comeback, it's just it's bonkers.
It's so I love his working punch. Such a great like he puts his hips into it really. And
I know. Like every time he has a comeback, it's like and it's that's the key when you can do. Even when you looked at Hogan back in the day, it's like, oh, he's doing the same thing again, and the fucking place is lit. it's super exciting. What's his comeback? Yeah, do those punches. Just do, you know what I mean? Don't do anything. you know,
like,
it's like how many times like Hogan, like, oh, third punch. Oh, he's looking around. It's like, yeah, do that again. Yeah, really? For the 150th time in a row? Fuck yeah.
Well, it's not. I mean, maybe someone on TV has seen it 150 times in a row, but the people in the arena, they came to see that for the first time. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if they didn't, if they haven't, just you know, it's too, when it's working too much. That is it is a thing sometimes. Like, nope, slow it down and do the same thing. Be redundant, because that's what the people want. You know, it's like Vince said. Sometimes I want meat and potatoes. I go to a restaurant that's famous for meat and potatoes. And you know what I order? Meat and potatoes. And what do I expect to come? Meat and potatoes. And then I enjoy it. Point being, yeah, you don't always need a swerve.
After the break, they sell that The Rock is seriously hurt. They show that medics are trying to help him up, but he refuses the attention, and he leaves on his own.
Yeah.
Big baby face.
Big baby face move. I don't need your help.
Ivory is back. I was excited. I was like, oh,
yeah. Ivory Jacqueline. Yeah.
But no, I was happy to see Ivory, and it's her versus Jackie for the women's title. I was like, where have the women been? I guess Mae Young has been eating up all the women's segment times.
Right.
Because we haven't really seen them in a few weeks. Maybe they've been on, they've probably been on Heat.
They have.
And so they have a quick match, a clean finish here, which was exciting.
Yep.
Jackie wins with her floating DDT. Crowd seems somewhat into it, but then I thought, this is SmackDown. This could be piped in.
Well, also, it just, look what it's following, you know?
Yeah, right,
kind
exactly.
of like, what do you know, when you're like laying out the segments, like, what do you do with that? Oh, do you put it before to give it some credence? But, the storyline, it's not, you know, so, but, you know, it's just one of those things. I think that's the proper place for it, and just like, fuck, just... I like seeing. I'm always excited to be. Jacqueline versus Ivory. Oh, we'll watch that.
Yeah.
You know, and it just was. Like, fuck. What you look what you followed. Like, what you know? What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Then we have Crash Holly's proper match.
Yes.
Against Prince Albert, which made me wonder. Like, I wonder if the Boss Man Albert Taz angle has been dropped based on this. You know, you didn't really pay it off. Like last time we saw Taz, he was attacked by Boss Man and Albert.
Was it dropped, or did it just lose its own momentum?
Well, yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
So this match, immediately they end up backstage or in the back of a truck, and then all of a sudden the Mean Street Posse crash the party.
Right.
And it ends up where Albert is fighting the posse. And
why
they
not?
end up in the ring, and Albert just beats up the posse, and then his music starts playing, and Crash is gone. He's nowhere to be found. So the match is over, I guess. All right, sure.
Well, it's all the fun of the 24/7. All he's got to do is get out of there, even though he's in a proper match, whatever.
But yeah, this one, the bell rang here. I guess the bell always rang. Yeah, I see. It's just a no.
Well, that's why the refs ultimately went on strike, being put in very confusing situations. And people love to see the posse get beat up. So. Well, I just like that. Also, that thing too was something I brought up. Was like, you could be in a match, and since you have this 24/7 rule, someone could do a run-in on the match you're in and get the fucking title at any moment. Even though you know what I mean? Just that wonderful.
With another ref.
Yeah, with that wonderful, strange confusion of like, what the hell's going on? Well, this is, that's, I like it. I'm a fan of it.
No, absolutely. I'm a big fan of this format. And like this is a great mid-card angle to get everyone involved.
And at least the announcers have stuff to talk about like we just talked about. And it's not just like, this just disintegrated into weird running. It was like, this is... Why is this happening? Because of this weird 24/7, and that's why they're doing this, and this is why it fell apart. So it's a little better than just like whatever strange schmaz.
Backstage, Too Cool say they have Rikishi's back. He appreciates it, And then we have the main event, Triple H and Big Show versus Rikishi. Once again, a traditional handicap match. There's tags. There's Rikishi still selling his legs. At one point, Too Cool decide it's time. We got to go. We got to go help him. And they get cut off by Road Dogg and X-Pac, who do not let them make it. Rikishi holds his own as much as he can, but eventually the numbers just get to him, much like with The Rock. And again, these are two guys in the main event. They're not going to lose to Rikishi.
Right.
So it ends up that he takes the choke slam and then the pedigree, takes two main event finishers to end him. So you at least make Rikishi look strong in defeat. And then they continue to attack him. Crowd is booing. Then comes The Rock. Crowd is cheering. The Rock's ribs are taped up. He tries to mount some offensive, but still the numbers game is too much. Right as he's about to put Triple H in the rock bottom, Shane storms in with a lead pipe, hits Rock right in the ribs. Ouch!
Yep.
Then they make short work out of The Rock. Triple H sets Rock up for a pedigree, not before giving him a huge wedgie and then giving him the pedigree. I always wonder about that. Like, I'm sure these two are pros, but like, after something like this, does The Rock go to the back and like, hey, why the fuck did you pull my pants up like that?
Yeah, quite possible. Yeah.
I wonder about it. But, the show ended unequivocally with heat.
Yep.
Old school heat. The
There you
heels
go.
look strong. The faces are in peril. And really, it's just one face. It's The Rock. I guess Rikishi is his
You're right.
kind of sidekick, sort of, his number two. But who can stop these heels? It's been a while since we've had a full-on like heel thing. I feel like we had it in December a lot. December, January, leading up to the Rumble with DX constantly like just leaving people bloodied.
Right.
So it's been a while since we've seen it because The Rock always ends up doing something where like, oh, our plan was foiled. Not tonight.
Right.
The plan was not foiled tonight. And, while I had my problems with the handicap matches as we've discussed, I thought these last 2 minutes were a great, I guess you could even say a cliffhanger. Like, oh, how is The Rock going to come back from these insurmountable odds?
No, it's true. Making him an underdog, because that is like that is the thing. Like, oh God, we're heading into Mania. It's weeks away, and just the pressure of like this year, but like, oh my God, it's going to be huge. So like, for whatever reason, be like, yeah, maybe put The Rock out. He's hurt, whatever. Got to make him an underdog somehow again for like this, massive thing. Can't be like, oh, everything's great. He's cruising into Mania, and he even wins the title. Like, but so it all makes sense. And if it doesn't, you just lie to yourself that it does afterwards. But like I said, it was an exceptionally scrambly show for those reasons, and also, people are like, oh, it's the travel day, the Tuesday. Yeah, it was crazy. I remember that. I remember watching this. I was like, that was my whole thing. Like, oh yeah, Boston, the travel was fucking nuts. But there you have it.
But you made it. One other thing I wanted to mention was in the Observer this week.
Ooh.
For this
Meltzer.
This week that we're recapping, he mentions how it's Beyond the Mat is about to be released.
Wow.
And there's a controversy that Vince McMahon forbade any advertising of Beyond the Mat, not just on WWE programming, but on the entirety of the USA Network and UPN, the two channels that WWE programming was on. Do you remember any sort of behind-the-scenes talk about the documentary, which I think holds up extremely well? It's a fascinating watch.
Gosh, so for some reason, I think I saw it before this time. Really? It's just being released at this time? I don't know how I would have seen it, but
there might have just been screenings that they were, because WWE did have involved. Maybe you got like a special tape or something.
Wow. I do know that it was like, I think it was like, oh, it was properly done documentary. And I think, it was one of those things Well, Vince is mercurial, and he's like a lot of things. I think the arc of what I remember about him was like, oh, that's, painting it in a bad light, and then it's like it came out and was to very good reviews, and then like, oh, that just means, it's good reviews, it just is a good business then. And then it just like went away in his mind. So he may have had some bug up his rear end, so to speak, about that. And
well, I mean, WWE doesn't necessarily look great in there. They allow, there's the Mick Foley scene with the chair shots to the head,
sure,
where his kids are crying.
But you could argue it that a lot of that went to like the nature of the business and Mick Foley himself. It didn't really present it like, oh, these people are victimized by this thing. It was like the madness of what pro wrestling is, and this guy, and he's very interesting, and that's his family life, and he's known for this, and obviously his other stuff. So it didn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't like this is an organization that people are making big money, it's tough, whatever. So you know what I mean? It didn't, and I think that was, anything that paints us in a bad light. But I think ultimately it came across, and it pumped up the business in a way. People are like, oh my God, this is so intriguing, this fucking world. And you know what I mean? For people on the outlier and be like, oh, this is, and it put, even though it broke kayfabe, it made a lot of people like realize like, oh, these guys get hurt. This is, tremendous.
This is real.
Yeah. So, I would argue that it especially the Attitude Era and what ECW did and what was getting huge ratings, it was this kind of like vicious, edgy thing that just led into. So it all created a good firestorm of publicity, or an effective one in terms of like why the business was so big in these years. Let's face it, it wasn't, anymore like, it's the bizarre thing about pro wrestling was like, the Hogan era was like, oh, it's weird. It's that, but it's for kids kind of, and they take your vitamins. But this was like, no, this is more for adults, and it's like craze. So I think it did good, and I think whether people got in his ears or realized like, no, this is a big thing that it's like, it was just like a well-respected documentary, and also was like, I think he just gets weird in anything like that doesn't have the WWF stamp of approval, and we didn't do it. I hate it. Then like, oh, it's being very, especially back then, movies came out and were like, oh, it's actually kind of like a hit. It's well received. Oh, good. He's been like that with a few things. Like the Wrestler, the movie. He hated it, whatever, and like, oh, but it's Mickey Rourke's a big box office star, and he's going,
he might get an Academy Award.
Okay, do an angle with Jericho, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so there you go. So it's pretty much that was my take on that.
Yeah, I love The Wrestler. Loved Beyond the Mat.
Yeah,
Beyond the Mat. I watched it not too long ago, and it's quite a time capsule now at this point. Like, well, a lot of it was about ECW that really fascinated me.
It's a proper documentary, Yeah. A lot of things nowadays are like, oh, it's a marketing documentary. You know what I mean? That's what I find. So much shit is just like weak or hot shotted, or just, this was like proper filmmaker who wasn't into wrestling or whatever, being like, oh, this is a fascinating subject, and from that angle. So yeah, it'll always hold up, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we're on the road to WrestleMania.
Oh,
we have about 3 weeks worth of shows until the big show, and next week.
Should we get a little thing that we point to? Like, I was fucking hated that. Like, we'll end the show with them looking at the WrestleMania logo. There, we're going there. Going to WrestleMania. Ugh.
It's crazy. They've been doing it now for 21 years. It seems like it's new. It started at WrestleMania 20, I remember.
Yeah. I do not like it. I don't know why. It's just like that. I was like, okay, that look. So soon I'm going there. Yeah, we know. Look at the thing.
The next thing we're going to do Raw, then we're going to do Smackdown, then we're going to do the SNL that The Rock hosted.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, you can, of course, always email us, tftattitudeera@gmail.com.
Why'd you say that like Trump?
It's very good email. .com. Not the .net. We don't want the .org. The .com.
All right.
And that's our show, folks. We'll see you next time on Tales from the Attitude Era.